Welcome to episode number 2 in my Booktubers Made Me Buy It series. Today we'll be focusing on Becca and the books. I actually already have a plan of the next booktuber I was going to do a reading vlog for, but I actually started a book last night without even thinking about it, realizing that I was saving it for a specific Booktube Made Me Buy It video. So instead, I'm switching things around and we're going to do Becca and the books this week. Becca over at Becca and the Books is probably one of the first booktubers I started watching, and I still very much enjoy her content. I definitely think I found her because of her Bookopoly series. I feel like that's probably the way a lot of people found her, but obviously there was just so much more to stick around for. Now, there have been many a book that she's made me purchase over the year just by watching her content, but this week I'm going to be reading 4. I might pick up a 5th book. Normally I would try and do 5, but they are some thicker books, so I might just stick with these 4. She tends to read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, which isn't something I tend to pick up, but there are still 4 books here, like I said, that she enticed me to buy. So the first book, and the book I've already started, is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. Obviously this series has become very popular here on Booktube, but originally I feel like Becca was one of the first people who started talking about it. She, I believe, was the only person I heard talking about it at the time that I picked this up, which was quite a while ago, and I just never got around to reading it. One, because I wanted to save it for this series, but 2, because I'm not a super big middle grade reader. Now, Nevermoor is about a girl named Morgan Crow. I almost said Jessica Crow. It's about a girl named Morgan Crow who brings bad luck to the community that she lives in. She is slated to die on this specific day, and she actually gets kind of whisked away to this magical school to participate in some sort of trials, I believe. It is called the Trials of Morgan Crow, so that would make sense. I only read probably like 60 pages of this the other night, but I'm immediately interested. I didn't think I would be super invested in this series, like I said, because I'm not a middle grade reader, but it's just feeling so whimsical and pleasant, and I love the main character already. She's got a bit of an attitude because people are treating her like crap for no fucking reason, and I love that. It's also feeling a little bit feminist, which I also kind of appreciate because, like I said, she's being forced to apologize for all these different things that she has nothing to do with. She's just being blamed for them for some reason. And so I appreciate that as well, and I hope that continues. The next book I bought because of Becca was The Furies by Lowe. I heard that this is compared to The Craft. I've actually never watched The Craft, which I realize is like sacrilegious, especially because I love horror, but here we are. Witches have never been a thing that I've been super interested in, but I'm starting to get more interested in them as I get older. Once again, because feminism. I know that Becca's talked a lot about this book, and the way she raved about it definitely encouraged me to pick it up. I'm not overly picky with thrillers and stuff, so I feel like I might get on with this one pretty well. The next book I have here is Aurora Rising by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. I'm not expecting to love this. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. I read the Illuminate files last year and really didn't like them. I thought they were incredibly mediocre, and so I'm kind of expecting the same thing from this. But essentially why I picked this one up is because I thought the Illuminate files was like something else. I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought that it was like a ragtag group of kids. I wanted the found family aspect on a spaceship. I've heard that this is more in line with what I was looking for, and I've heard Becca talk very highly of it, so here we are. And the last book that I have in this vlog for now is The Beckoning Shadow by Katharyn Blair. So this book is about a girl who has some sort of power to turn people's nightmares into reality, I believe, and she's going to compete in some sort of competition. All of that is very much up my alley. I love any sort of competition situation. This is one actually I don't think I've heard Becca talk about a lot, but she is the reason I bought it. I know she mentioned it at least once where I was just like, oh yes, that sounds great. It's just totally different from most of the things I read now, and I'm hoping that it'll be a lot of fun. Now that I filmed this intro, I can get back to actually reading Nevermoor, which I'm really looking forward to. Let's talk about my initial impressions of Nevermoor. I'm about a quarter of the way through now, and I'm really enjoying it. I figured I would, but there were moments where I found my mind wandering. I realized that that was just like wrong day to be reading it. I was just like easily distracted that day. So far, not only am I enjoying the main character a lot, I love that she's not just like your average girl, but she's also not like other girls either. I feel like so often in, honestly, just literature in general, but especially young adult literature and middle grade, I feel like so often they kind of create almost a bland character so that whoever is reading the book can kind of insert themselves in the story. And I feel like with Morgan, that's just not the case. She is a very unique character. She's very outspoken and kind of sassy, and like, I just kind of love her. Because I'm only a quarter of the way through, I don't know a lot about the world yet, but I do enjoy the hotel where she's staying and like the way that the hotel warps and changes around the people who are there. I think that's super fun. And I like that I don't really know where the story's going either, because they've hinted at some things about like which people are telling the truth, can she trust these people, and like normally I would have an idea already in my head about where that sort of thing was going, and I actually don't know here. So I'm really enjoying it overall, and I'm actually really looking forward to reading more. So I finished Nevermoor, and I absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. It was so lovely. It was so wonderful. It was just delightful. I'm actually already halfway through Wondersmith because I loved it that much. It is very rare that I just like binge books, but I'm so into this. You know, I wanted to have more updates and break it up a little bit more, but I absolutely couldn't. I just wanted to binge read the whole book. I could not put it down. I'm not a huge middle grade reader, but there was not a single time throughout this entire book where I thought to myself, oh, I'm reading a children's story. It was never too adult, but it didn't spend any time speaking down to children either, which some books do. I loved every single character in this book. I want Jupiter to adopt me. Their relationship is everything. I love any book with a competition, so I thought that aspect was really fun. I love this world, and I do feel like it maybe isn't as fleshed out as some fantasy and middle grade books are, but I almost think that worked for me. I'm okay with spending a little more time and waiting a little bit to get more exploration of the world, because I'm not a huge fan of a ton of exposition. I feel like the series has just like the perfect amount of whimsy. It's not so whimsical that I find it annoying or cloying, but it has enough whimsy to be just delightful and to be just this like escapist read. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. I'm so happy I read that. Like I said, I'm halfway through Wondersmith already. I will say Wondersmith took a much darker turn than I was expecting it to. There was a literal like slave auction in the middle of this book that I really wasn't fucking expecting. I did not enjoy that, but overall I'm really enjoying it too. I probably won't update that much about the second book in this vlog, but overall I just love the series and I'm so happy I read that. I actually decided on another book to pick up for this vlog. It does kind of break my whole Booktube made me buy it because I didn't actually buy this book. I'm reading it through Kindle Unlimited, and that book is Rhapsodic by Thalassa? I don't remember what her name is, but I will find out. All I know about this novel is that it is fae and it is smut. And I've seen Becca talk about it many times, and honestly, I don't usually think about it, but she's just like raved so much about it that I was like, you know what, I'm in the mood for some smut, let's try something different, so I picked it up, and we'll see how it goes. I've only read the first couple chapters, but I'm already really enjoying it. Sometimes with smut, it can be a bit dodgy because a lot of it is self-published and some of it isn't well written or well edited, but so far her writing is solid, so at the very least I'll be able to get through the book. We'll just see from here if I enjoy it. I'm not one for fae usually, but hopefully this one will get me out of my comfort zone and allow me to enjoy a new subgenre. So I started reading Rhapsodic by Thalassa. Is that it? So far I'm really liking it. I believe I'm about 25% of the way into it. The main love interest is giving me like Damon Salvatore vibes, which I am always into. It's going a lot between the past and present and showing how she got into this situation where she owes the bargainer a ton of different favors because she's made like 300 deals with him, and of course, how is she going to pay him back? Possibly sex. I really like the possibility of where this book is going because it seems to be that he's going to take her into like the fairy world or the dark world. I don't remember what it's called, but I like the idea of getting to explore that other dimension. There's another love interest that's been hinted at, but I haven't met him yet, which I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that one because he seems to be like the alpha werewolf type, which isn't really my thing, but I'm definitely into the love interest she has now. I'm into her character now. In the past, like the flashbacks, not into her at all because she's definitely more of a pushover, like needy, desperate type. Whereas in the present, she's like got her shit together and she's more of a badass. Although I will say it's definitely like badass in a stereotypical tough girl way. So we'll see how these characters get fleshed out as it continues. I haven't gotten to a smut scene yet, so we'll also see how that goes. I've literally never read anything by this author before, but so far I have no complaints. Her writing is on point, there's nothing glaringly terrible, so that's kind of all I can hope for sometimes when I'm starting a new erotica book. It's a low bar, but some don't clear it. I'm definitely enjoying like learning the rules of their deals and how his powers work, and I'm interested to see like the more that gets explored and the different ways she'll pay off her debts. So I'm about 50% of the way through Rhapsodic, and I honestly have so very little to say about it because it is just not really going anywhere. I feel like it's just starting, I guess, to go somewhere. I will say that like in the last chapter or so there was some stuff with some creepy kids, and I'm very much into that. I'm enjoying that like very creepy element. But yeah, so far there have been no sex scenes. There's just been a little bit like cute banter, I guess. Overall, so far this book is fine. It got mushy. Sappy romances really aren't my thing, and suddenly this one has turned into that. I'm about 70% of the way through, and I'm honestly, at this point, really not looking forward to the other 30%. It's just gotten so lovey-dovey. They profess their love for each other, and now I'm just over it. There has also only been one sex scene so far, and it was mediocre at best. So yeah, I was really hoping that this was gonna go a different way. I mean, this is a series, for God's sakes. Why are they professing their love for each other in book 1? Alright, quick update. I finished Rhapsodic and I didn't love it. I gave it 2 stars. I was just really, really bored. Like, I had 10% of the book left and I was like, should I DNF? Which is not great because 10% is not a lot to read. I pushed through, it's fine, but I just really didn't care after they started confessing their feelings for each other. I was just like, it lost all interest for me. I was not into it at all. Now, what I will say is, like, this is not a bad book. This isn't a book I would point to and be like, yeah, that was trash. There is definitely an audience for this out there. Like, I absolutely know that a lot of people would love it, and I can see why. It's just not at all for me. Now, some of the issues I did have with it, some of the issues that I don't think were done well, everyone kept talking about how dangerous and evil the bargainer was, which was the love interest, but like we never really got to see that very often, which is a huge problem. The other thing was the plot line with the thief of souls. That was like the big bad of this book, and I feel like they just constantly would forget about it. It would pop up here or there. It popped up right in the middle for a little bit, and I enjoyed that part, and then it's like they forgot about it until the very, very end when it popped up again. And like that was fine, but by that point I just didn't care anymore and I just wanted the book to be over. So I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was not a winner, but it wasn't a waste of time either. I did enjoy the first half of the book enough. It was fine, it wasn't great, but I don't know. I'm not mad I read it, you know? So then I started my next book, which was Aurora Rising by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. Now, the thing with this book is I really hated the Illuminate series. And I can already see some of the issues that I had with that series also being present in this series. I started listening to the audiobook because that is one thing I will say about Amie Kaufman and Kristoff is they seem to get really good production of their audiobooks. So I got this one and I think I'm about 30% of the way through because it is very easy to listen to. It's easy to turn on and it's just kind of like mind fluff. Like it feels like a YA blockbuster movie. Like a movie that was made for the CW. That would be horrible. Thank God they don't make movies. This is very much about a ragtag crew that gets on a ship together, which was kind of what I was looking for. I wanted something with these vibes, but I just don't think Kristoff and Amie Kaufman's writing is for me. It's very tween. One of my biggest problems I had with the Illuminate files was every character felt pretty much identical to the last, especially going from book to book. Every single couple was exactly the same as the couple in the last book. Like, you could not tell me they were different characters with different dynamics because they all felt identical. And that is kind of present in this book, not nearly as bad as the Illuminati Files, I will say. I feel like I can at least differentiate these characters a little bit more. But I definitely don't care about any of them, and my mind is not grasping on to the politics so far. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm currently about 50% of the way into Aurora Rising, and the thing I've realized is that I don't understand fake geography or fake politics. I've never gotten along with fantasy or sci-fi, or at least like space related sci-fi, and it never really clicked into me that that's why I don't like it, is because my mind cannot grasp onto a ton of different countries and a ton of different politics and relationships between those countries when none of them are actually real. The only series that I've ever read and totally understood was the Bardugo series. And honestly, I don't think I fully understood the geography until I actually looked at the map again while watching the TV show. So yeah, it took 5 books and a TV show for me to get that. I do like pushing myself out of my comfort zone so that I do understand what I like and don't like and why. And listening to this has definitely made me understand that more. In order to try and finish this audiobook, I'm going to try diamond painting. I've seen Becca do it on her channel, and so I picked one up because I thought it would be fun for this video. And I really do think it seems like a good idea and a good way to kind of pass the time while I'm listening to an audiobook, so that I'm not bored, but my mind isn't distracted by anything too exerting, I guess. Alright, so I finished Aurora Rising, and you know what? It wasn't that bad. I still don't get what's going on for the most part, but I really liked the last 20 or so percent. It's definitely something that I've kind of seen before in other genres, but I actually really liked it for the most part. I'm not sure if I necessarily care where the story goes though. I highly doubt I'm gonna pick up the next book. I feel like this is very much a character-driven story, but I didn't get connected to any of the characters. I don't care about any of these people or what happens to them. There's a lot of love triangles going on. I can't even call them love triangles because they're all in love with each other. Like, it's just a mess. But I don't care about any of it. I don't ship any of them. So while I appreciate where the plot went and where the story went, this series just isn't for me. But I would give it like 2.5 to 3 stars. So I figure it's time for an update on the Furies. I'm going camping this weekend, and that's actually the book I'm bringing with me to read, so hopefully I'll get a good chunk of the way through. I think I'm about 20% of the way through right now, and so far I'm liking it. I really like the overall vibe and tone of it, but not a lot has happened. So essentially this is about a girl who goes through an accident, and she loses some family members, and it's just kind of very traumatic. And her family's kind of a mess, and so she gets sent away to go to this all-girls like boarding school, I guess. And so she's a new kid, she's kind of a loner, and she ends up meeting this group of girls, and they kind of take her under her wing, but especially this one girl who I guess would be like the leader of the group. And so far that's like kind of all that's happened. You know that something has happened. There's a bit of the like back and forth. The narrator is clearly like in the present, and she's looking back at her like childhood or her high school years and thinking about what's happened, but there's not a lot in the present. Like, you're not following her in the present. She's just narrating it. It's almost got this hazy appeal to it that I can't totally explain, but I mean, just like you're looking back on your childhood with like rose-tinted glasses or something, except with a sinister vibe. I don't know if that's gonna make any sense, but that's what I'm getting. But so far, the thing I'm not enjoying is that, like I said, like not a lot's happened. I understand the idea of slowly introducing characters and then working your way up to something, and I'm hoping that's what's happening. But I just feel like the characters aren't being very fleshed out. It's like they instantly became friends, and they're like, oh, and we told each other everything, but you don't really get to see them telling each other everything. You don't get to see much of them actually connecting. I'm only 20% in though, and I feel like it is a strong start, and I could definitely end up loving this if it gets better, if something starts happening and propelling me forward. So I'm about 30% through the Furies, maybe 35%, something like that. And currently I just want the plot to start. Because right now I just feel like we're running on witchy vibes alone, and I mean, that's fine, that's great, but like, when is something gonna happen? Our main character has currently just joined this kind of all-girls secret society situation with her teacher, and while that's interesting, there still hasn't been a lot happening. I'm hoping that we start getting some murders or something just to kickstart the action. So I'm over halfway done with the Furies now, and things have started moving and grooving and getting on their way, and so shit's actually happening now. I want to talk about a specific scene, so I'm going to put a spoiler picture on the screen, and if you don't want to hear the spoiler, you can skip past it, but just know that it's also a trigger warning, so if you need trigger warnings, I would listen to this part, but if you don't want the trigger warning, you don't want the spoiler, you're planning on reading this book and don't want to hear any of that, you can just skip forward in this video past the spoiler tag. So around a third of the way through this book, maybe a little later than that, there is a rape scene. I feel like we so often see very violent rapes play out in pretty much all forms of media, and I kind of appreciated the way this one was done. It's not a scene where he holds her down and she fights back and he very viciously rapes her. It's a much quieter form of violence. She makes it very known to him that she is uncomfortable, that she doesn't want to do this. She repeatedly says that she wants to get home, and he kind of ignores all that and brings her to this place in the woods anyway, and you know, she kind of feels like maybe she should run off, but she doesn't want to make a scene because she thinks like, you know, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I'm overreacting. And it's very clear in the book that he knows this. And I just really appreciate the way that's done. I feel like it's so easy for people to do cut and dry rape scenes where this person is clearly a monster. I want to see more scenes like this where it isn't so much about the brutality of rape, but about the lines crossed. And I feel like the writer does a really good job of showing that this is still rape and that this is still traumatic. But so far, I'm really enjoying the vibes. I'm really liking where this is going, and I'm interested to see how it's gonna end because I just don't know. You can clearly see the cracks in this girl group and the friendships that they have. And so I'm definitely interested to see how dark it's gonna get and how it plays out. So I finished the Furies quite a while ago and just never updated. At first I just needed a second to think about it because I just wasn't sure how to talk about it, and honestly, I'm still not, but here we are, we're doing it. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, so this was definitely a winner for me. But even saying that, the ending to this book was weird. It just didn't make any logical sense. Let's talk about the things that I loved in this book first, and then we'll get to the ending. I just really loved the way that this book explored female friendship. I think it did a really good job of showing the complexity of it, of showing how something can be so good yet so toxic, how you can crave that friendship even if it's maybe not doing the best things for you. I also think it showed female rage really well and wanting to get back at the people who hurt you. I think it showed the way trauma can affect you and can affect the way you see the world. I think it showed the way that trauma can really eat away at your trust in other people. There are a couple different types of violence that the women in the story had to deal with. I wish that there was a little more time spent on those things, a little more of a deep dive, but overall I really think that the book handled it well. Now, I think the things that could have been better were I think that the first part of the book spent so much time building up the atmosphere that it didn't spend enough time building up the characters instead. I think this book could have really fucking hit well if they had spent more time on the characters' relationships to one another. And then there was the ending, which I feel like the author came up with an idea for the ending and didn't spend enough time making sure it made sense. Because it is not that there's some twist or reveal that I hated at all. I love the way the ending, I love the idea of the ending. I love the idea of who did what and, you know, what happened, the ramifications of it, I love all of that. The problem is that it didn't actually make logical sense. It didn't make practical sense. The way it happened does not work in any way. And it's very clear that the author knows it didn't work because she even mentions it. After this event happens where one of the characters die, it even says in the book how, oh, I don't think that's even how that would work, and I'm like, okay, so you clearly knew that the ending didn't make sense, and yet you went ahead with it anyway. I just don't understand why you wouldn't spend more time thinking that out and thinking a different way to do this. Regardless though, I will read more from this author. I did really like this book. The ending let me down, but overall it was a very enjoyable read. I definitely think that this is not a thriller. I definitely went in thinking that it was. I just think this is more of a dark literary fiction, or maybe a dark YA fiction. I believe I'm about 10% into this, so not very far. I'm just sort of getting an idea of what the main character's powers are. This definitely seems to be in an X-Men type vein, where there are these oddities who have these supernatural powers, and people in the world are now starting to have a problem with it, and they're wanting to, I'm assuming, suppress these people or lock them up or something. I don't totally know yet. I know that there's something in the main character's past where her powers went wrong and something bad happened. I'm assuming someone died. So she's been on the run. I believe her powers have something to do with other people's fears, which is really interesting. I don't like that we were automatically introduced to a love interest. Don't love YA love stories. I don't like that romances are automatically smushed into every YA book. I'm probably going to listen to this on an audiobook, I think. Some of the writing has seemed a little bit cliche, but we'll see how it goes going forward. So I'm about 30% of the way through The Beckoning Shadow. Honestly, I don't have a lot of thoughts. I'm enjoying it for what it is. A lot of this book seems to revolve around this sort of oddities fight club. They're all in this tournament, and they use their special powers to try and beat each other, and whoever's the last one standing wins money as well as an unraveling. I'm not totally sure what an unraveling is. I do think they explained it. I think I just wasn't paying total attention. I don't know if it's that you can undo your superpower, like you can get rid of it, or it's just that you can redo something in your life, like you can go back and change something. Something along those lines. I always love a competition. I'm not loving the fact that I know where part of the storyline is going, because she's debating screwing over this guy who's her age, who's clearly going to be her love interest, and I feel like I know where that's going, but regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing at least where the competition stuff goes, and I love a good training montage, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So I finished The Beckoning Shadow, and overall, I liked it. It was fine. Admittedly, I'm just not a YA reader anymore. I definitely bought this book when I still thought that I was into YA books. I bought a lot of books when I first started Booktube that I now know aren't really the types of books that I love. But I would still give this 3 stars. I think that everything played out in a very predictable way, unfortunately, and I really wish that they'd spent more time within the competition, because that's the stuff I thought that was the most interesting. The one thing I will say that I did really like is that there were consequences to the main character's actions. Sometimes in YA books, I don't like that everything gets brushed aside really easily, and no matter what wrong move they make, the people who love them are just like, it's fine. She made some decisions with her own family that have actual consequences. The people in her life tell her, like, I love you, but it's still not okay, and I like that aspect. My least favorite one of the books I read for this vlog, it ended up being Rhapsodic by Thalassa. Thalassa's? Who would have thought that a smut book would end up at the bottom of my list? Certainly not me. But this just really didn't do it for me, and I think that comes down to the fact I definitely focused more on the love than the lust. And that's really not my thing. I'm not one for actual romance in my books. I like things that are a little bit darker, and that's what I thought I was going to get with this, because I feel like from the cover of the book, I don't know, the vibes I got from it, I just thought it was going to be a very dark romance, and it definitely wasn't what I would consider a dark romance at all. The darker aspects of this book definitely came from the fantasy elements and not at all from the romance. So unfortunately, this one wasn't for me. The next one would probably be Aurora Rising by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. This isn't that surprising. I wasn't a fan of their Illuminae Files trilogy, so I kind of knew I wasn't going to love this. Though I will say I did like this book more than I liked the Illuminae Files. I really just didn't enjoy those. Whereas this I very much liked the ending of, but I'm not going to continue on because I just don't think the writing is for me. Next would be The Beckoning Shadow, and I think that just has to do with the fact that it's YA and like it's really not my thing anymore. I feel like shoving a love story in a YA book always ends up annoying me more than being something I enjoy, and this one definitely had a lot of that. Next would be The Furies by Katie Lowe. I really ended up enjoying this. I think this one was a total winner. I love all the dark themes it explored, and yeah, I think more people should read this, although definitely be prepared for an ending that isn't very satisfying. And by far and away, my biggest favorite and biggest winner from this list is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. I absolutely ended up loving this, and I truly didn't expect that. I'm not a middle grade reader or a fantasy reader, and this totally did it for me. Such a comfort read. I've already read the second book and just like adored it. I can't wait to read Hollowpacks, and I'm so glad that I did this video because I never would have found the middle grade genre in general if it wasn't for this. Becca and me totally don't have similar tastes in the sense that she reads a lot of fantasy and I read basically none, but even still I was able to find 2 great books in this. So I'm really glad that I did this. I hope you liked this video and I hope you come back in soon. Bye.